Family always came first for me. Growing up in a small town in Minnesota, my brother Jackson and I were inseparable. He was my hero, my protector, the person I trusted most in this world. But everything changed the day I came out. The brother who once defended me against bullies called me the worst slur imaginable and told me he did not want a guy like me around his son. Let me know where you are watching from and hit that like and subscribe button as I share how karma eventually made my brother come crawling back. I was born and raised in Pine Creek, Minnesota, a town so small you could walk from one end to the other in 20 minutes flat. In communities like ours, traditions ran deep and changes came slow. My parents were hardworking people who owned the local hardware store, a business that had been in our family for 3 generations. Jackson was 3 years older than me, and from my earliest memories he took his role as big brother seriously. When I was 5, and the neighbor kids laughed at my Spider-Man lunchbox, Jackson made them apologize. In middle school, when Bobby Thompson pushed me into a locker, Jackson was there the next day to make sure it never happened again. We shared a bedroom until I was 14, whispering late into the night about everything from baseball cards to our dreams for the future. I knew I was different by the time I hit high school. While Jackson talked about girls constantly, I found myself noticing the quarterback instead of the cheerleaders. I kept this realization buried deep, knowing how our small town viewed such things. Jackson went on to play college baseball at the University of Minnesota, while I focused on academics, and eventually earned a scholarship to Northwestern. College in Chicago was liberating. Away from the watchful eyes of Pine Creek, I could finally explore who I really was. I joined the LGBTQ student group, made friends who accepted me completely, and even went on a few dates. Still, whenever I called home or visited for holidays, I carefully edited my life, afraid to disappoint my family, especially Jackson. After graduation, I landed a job as a financial analyst at a prestigious firm in Chicago. My career took off quickly, and by 27 I was leading my own team and had bought my first condo. Jackson, meanwhile, had married his college sweetheart, Amanda, and settled back in Minnesota, working his way up to an executive position at a manufacturing company in Minneapolis. When my nephew Ethan was born, I felt a connection I never expected. The first time I held that tiny human in my arms, something shifted inside me. I became Uncle Court, sending thoughtful gifts, flying back for birthdays, and video calling to read bedtime stories. Ethan had my heart completely, and I rearranged my busy schedule whenever possible to be present in his life. It was during one of those visits back home that I met David. He was the new veterinarian in town, and we bumped into each other at the local coffee shop. There was an immediate spark, and we exchanged numbers before I flew back to Chicago. What started as long-distance calls grew into weekend visits, and within a year, David had relocated his practice to Chicago to be with me. He was kind, brilliant, and made me laugh until my sides hurt. For the first time, I understood what people meant when they talked about finding their person. After 2 years together, David and I moved in together, and I knew it was time to stop hiding. I was tired of introducing him as my roommate or friend at family events. I deserved to be my authentic self, with the people I loved most. We planned to visit for Thanksgiving, and I decided that would be the moment to finally come out to my family. The holiday gathering started like any other. Mom fussed over the turkey, Dad watched football. Jackson played with 5-year-old Ethan on the living room floor, while Amanda helped in the kitchen. After dinner, when everyone was relaxed and full of pumpkin pie, I nervously asked for everyone's attention. I can still picture the scene perfectly. The warmth of the fireplace, the lingering smell of cinnamon, and sage, the sound of Ethan playing with his toys in the corner. I took a deep breath and simply said, I am gay, and David is not my roommate. He is my partner. The silence that followed felt eternal. Mom looked shocked, but recovered quickly, reaching for my hand across the table. Dad cleared his throat several times before asking a few awkward but well-meaning questions. Amanda offered a small smile and said she had suspected for a while, but Jackson sat completely still, his expression unreadable. He excused himself shortly after, claiming Ethan needed to get to bed, though it was hours before his usual bedtime. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of strained conversations and careful avoidance. Jackson barely spoke to me directly, and whenever David entered a room, my brother found a reason to leave it. I told myself he just needed time to process that 28 years of knowing me would outweigh whatever prejudice he might harbor. I was wrong. 1 week after Thanksgiving, my phone rang with Jackson's number. I answered eagerly, hoping this would be the conversation where he would come around, where he would tell me that nothing had changed between us. Instead, his voice was cold, formal, like he was speaking to a stranger. "I need to make something clear," he said. "I do not want my son around this lifestyle you have chosen." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. "Lifestyle? What are you talking about?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. "Do not play dumb, Courtney," he snapped. "I do not want a guy like me around Ethan. He is at an impressionable age, and I will not have him confused by your choices." The slur hit me like a physical blow. This was my brother, the person who had protected me my entire life, now wielding the same hateful language that bullies had used. I tried reasoning with him, explaining that being gay was not a choice or a lifestyle, that I was still the same person he had always known, but his mind was made up. "I will not have you influencing my son," he declared. "Amanda and I agree that it is best if you do not have contact with Ethan going forward." That was a lie. I later learned from my parents that Amanda had fought with Jackson about his decision, but ultimately could not change his mind. As the call ended, I sat in stunned silence, tears streaming down my face. David found me that way, curled up on our couch, my world shattered. The next few months revealed the full extent of Jackson's rejection. He blocked my number and removed me from all social media. Family gatherings were carefully orchestrated so that we would not overlap. If my parents planned to see me, Jackson would find a reason why he, Amanda, and Ethan could not attend. If they were visiting Jackson's family, I was told it was not a good time for me to come home. Mom and Dad were caught in an impossible position. They did not agree with Jackson, but were terrified of losing access to their grandson if they pushed too hard. They tried to mediate, carrying messages back and forth, showing Ethan photos of me so he would not forget his Uncle Court entirely. But as months stretched into a year, then 2, the divide only seemed to grow. The rejection plunged me into a depression, unlike anything I had experienced before. I had always feared this outcome, which is why I had hidden my true self for so long. Now my worst fears were realized, and the pain was even more devastating than I had imagined. I started therapy, trying to process the grief of losing my brother and nephew in one fell swoop. Through it all, David was my rock. He held me during the worst nights, listened as I cycled through anger, bargaining, and deep sadness. He reminded me that I deserved love and acceptance, not conditional tolerance. His family welcomed me with open arms, showing me what true family support looked like. Slowly, I began to rebuild. David and I got engaged on a snowy evening in Millennium Park, the Chicago skyline twinkling behind us. We bought a beautiful brownstone with a small yard and spent weekends renovating it together. I threw myself into my career, earning a significant promotion. We built a chosen family of friends who celebrated holidays with us, created new traditions, and filled our home with laughter. My parents provided occasional updates about Ethan. He had started kindergarten, lost his first tooth, developed an obsession with dinosaurs. Each milestone was a bittersweet reminder of what I was missing. I sent birthday and Christmas gifts through my parents, never knowing if Jackson actually gave them to Ethan, or if he even told my nephew who they were from. 2 years passed this way. The acute pain of Jackson's rejection had dulled to a persistent ache. I had stopped expecting reconciliation and had made peace with the fact that some relationships cannot be saved, no matter how much history or blood you share. I had chosen happiness and authenticity over the approval of someone who could not accept me as I was. And then, at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, my phone rang with Jackson's number. I stared at the screen in disbelief. In 2 years, not a single call or text had come from this number. My heart raced as I debated whether to answer. David, half asleep beside me, mumbled a question about who would call so late. "It might be an emergency," I said, and pressed accept. But it was not Jackson's voice I heard. It was Amanda, and she was crying. "Courtney," she choked out. "I am so sorry to call this late." I did not know who else to turn to. My mind immediately went to the worst possibilities. Was Ethan sick? Had something happened to my parents? "What is wrong?" I asked, fully alert now. "Is everyone okay?" She took a shuddering breath. "Jackson lost his job 3 months ago. The company downsized, and his entire department was eliminated. He's been looking for work, but nothing has come through, and now. She paused, her voice breaking. We got a foreclosure notice today. We have 30 days to vacate our house. I sat up in bed processing this information. Jackson, who had always been the successful one, the one who had it all figured out, was facing financial ruin. It was hard to reconcile this with the image of my confident older brother. I am so sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But why are you calling me Jackson? Made it very clear where I stand in his life. There was a long pause. The thing is, there is more, she admitted. Jackson had been gambling for years, small amounts at first, but it escalated after he lost his job. Our savings are gone. We have maxed out credit cards. There is nowhere else for us to go. The realization of what she was asking dawned on me slowly. You want to stay with us, I clarified, hardly believing the situation. Just until we get back on our feet, she pleaded. I know it is a lot to ask after everything, but we have a 7-year-old boy who does not deserve to be homeless because of his father's mistakes. Please, Courtney. I would not ask if we had any other options. I told her I needed to discuss it with David and would call her back. After I hung up, I relayed the conversation to my now fully awake fiancé. His reaction surprised me. Of course they can stay with us, he said, without hesitation. We have the space, and Ethan is an innocent child in all this. But there need to be ground rules. No homophobia in our home, no disrespect. This is our sanctuary, and we will not be made to feel uncomfortable in it. I was torn between anger, vindication, and concern. Part of me wanted to tell Jackson to reap what he had sown. Another part remembered the brother who had protected me for so many years before that final rejection. And above all, there was Ethan, who had done nothing to deserve any of this. After a long discussion, David and I agreed to offer them our guest room and the small office we could convert to a bedroom for Ethan. But Jackson would have to be the one to call and ask, and he would have to agree to our terms. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, it was Jackson. His voice was different than I remembered, deflated and rough around the edges. He struggled through a request for help, his pride clearly making every word painful. I did not make it easy for him, but I did not make it impossible either. Our home is open to you on these conditions, I stated firmly. You will respect me. You will respect David and our relationship. There will be no homophobic comments or slurs. You will not undermine us to Ethan. This is our home, and you are guests in it. If you cannot agree to these terms, then you will need to find another solution. There was a long silence before he responded. I understand. We will respect your rules. 3 days later, they arrived at our brownstone with suitcases and boxes of essential belongings, everything else put into storage or sold. Ethan had grown so much now, a lanky 7-year-old with Jackson's eyes and Amanda's dimples. He regarded me with curiosity but no recognition. Jackson looked haggard with dark circles under his eyes and a defeated slump to his shoulders that I had never seen before. Amanda was clearly embarrassed but grateful, thanking us profusely as David showed them to their rooms. That first dinner together was painfully awkward. Conversation was stilted, with Amanda trying too hard to fill the silence, while Jackson pushed food around his plate. Only Ethan seemed oblivious to the tension, chattering about his dinosaur collection and asking David endless questions once he learned my fiancé had treated a bearded dragon at his veterinary practice. As they settled in, I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake or taken the first step toward healing a wound I had thought would never close. The first week of our new living arrangement was like navigating a minefield. Jackson would leave early each morning to job hunt, returning late and speaking little. When we were in the same room, the weight of unspoken words hung heavy between us. I caught him watching David and me, sometimes his expression unreadable. Ethan, however, adapted quickly. Children have a remarkable resilience and an ability to accept things as they are. One morning over breakfast, he looked at me thoughtfully and said, I know who you are. You are Uncle Court. I have seen pictures of you in Grandma's house. My heart nearly stopped. I am. I confirmed, unsure how much he knew or what Jackson had told him about my absence from his life. Ethan continued eating his cereal, apparently satisfied with my answer. After a moment, he asked innocently, Why did we never visit you before? From the doorway came Jackson's voice, tight with tension. Ethan, go get ready for school. But I am not finished with my breakfast. Ethan protested. Now please. Jackson insisted, his face flushed. I maintained eye contact with my brother as Ethan reluctantly left the table. This is exactly the kind of thing we need to discuss, I said evenly. What have you told him about me all these years? Jackson sank into a chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Nothing, he admitted. We just stopped mentioning you. When he saw pictures at Mom and Dad's, we would change the subject. Despite everything, I found myself helping Jackson. I reviewed his resume, connected him with contacts in my professional network, and practiced interview questions with him. David, meanwhile, bonded with Ethan over their shared love of dinosaurs and science, taking him to the Field Museum and helping with homework. Amanda found part-time work at a local cafe, contributing what she could to household expenses and often cooking dinner for everyone as a thank you. She confided in me that she had nearly left Jackson when he had banned me from their lives, but stayed for Ethan's sake. Now she was not sure what their future held, with trust broken by the gambling and financial secrets. The turning point came about a month into their stay. Ethan was playing in the living room, while David and I prepared dinner. Jackson returned from another unsuccessful interview, his frustration palpable. Ethan ran up to him, excited to show him a model dinosaur David had helped him build. Look, Dad. Uncle David helped me make a triceratops. Something in Jackson snapped. He is not your uncle, he said sharply. The room went silent. Ethan's face crumpled in confusion, and David froze beside me at the counter. I stepped forward, ready to intervene, when Ethan innocently asked the question that would change everything. But Uncle Court is my uncle, and Uncle David is going to marry him, right? So that makes him my uncle too. Grandma said so. Jackson looked at his son, then at us, and I watched as something cracked in his carefully maintained facade. Without a word, he turned and walked out the back door into our small yard. I followed him after ensuring Ethan was okay with David. I found my brother sitting on our garden bench, his head in his hands. You cannot do that to your son, I said quietly. Or to us, not in our home. I know, he whispered. And when he looked up, I was shocked to see tears streaming down his face. I have messed up everything, Court. My career, our finances, my marriage. And I threw away my relationship with my only brother because I was too scared and ignorant to see past my own prejudice. It was the first real acknowledgement of the harm he had caused. I sat beside him, not touching, not yet ready to comfort, but willing to listen. I was raised to believe certain things were wrong, he continued. And when you came out, it challenged everything I thought I knew. It was easier to push you away than to question those beliefs. And then I saw how much Amanda disagreed with me, how disappointed our parents were. But I was too proud to admit I might be wrong. Living with us this past month had forced him to see David and me as real people, not stereotypes or abstractions. He witnessed our morning routines, our small disagreements, our affection, our partnership in maintaining a home. He saw that we were just like any other couple, except we had endured prejudice that straight couples never face. I do not expect you to forgive me, Jackson said finally, but I need you to know that I was wrong. So wrong. And I am sorry, Courtney. I am sorry for the horrible things I said, for keeping Ethan from you, for being the kind of person I always taught him to stand up against. I had imagined this moment countless times over the past 2 years. In my fantasies, I either embraced forgiveness wholeheartedly or rejected him completely, telling him it was too late. The reality was messier, more complicated. I appreciate your apology, I said carefully. But you need to understand that trust once broken has to be rebuilt. It does not happen instantaneously. He nodded, accepting this truth. Can we try? He asked, his voice small and uncertain. Can I try to be the brother you deserve? With help from my network, Jackson secured a position at a company where diversity and inclusion were core values. The salary was less than his previous job, but it was a start. Over the next 2 months, they saved enough for a security deposit on a modest apartment. As they prepared to move out, the dynamic between us had shifted dramatically. Jackson attended PFLAG meetings on his own initiative. He asked thoughtful questions about our experiences and listened to the answers. He made an effort to get to know David beyond superficial conversations. Most importantly, he allowed Ethan to develop a real relationship with both of us, never again attempting to minimize or delegitimize our role in his life. The day they moved into their new apartment, Jackson pulled me aside. I still have a lot to learn and unlearn, he acknowledged. But I want you to know that having you back in my life, in Ethan's life, means everything to me. I do not deserve the second chance you have given me, but I promise not to waste it. I nodded, still cautious but hopeful. One step at a time, I reminded him. We have a lot of history to process. As the months passed, our relationship continued to heal, though the scars remained. Ethan began spending weekends with us, occasionally filling our home with the energy only a child can bring. David and I postponed our wedding, deciding to give everyone time to adjust to the new family dynamics before celebrating such a significant event. What I learned through this journey is that family is indeed precious, but it is not a blank check for mistreatment. Setting boundaries does not mean giving up on love. Forgiveness does not require forgetting. And sometimes the greatest act of compassion is allowing someone the space to grow beyond their worst moments, even when those moments caused you immense pain. When Jackson called me that horrible slur and cut me out of his life, I never imagined that karma would bring him to my doorstep. Humbled and desperate, I never thought I would have the opportunity to model the acceptance he had denied me. But life has a way of coming full circle, teaching lessons to those willing to learn. Have you ever had to forgive someone who deeply hurt you? Was it worth it in the end? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more reflections on family forgiveness and finding your authentic path. And share this video with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible, even after the deepest betrayals. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember that sometimes the family we choose is as important as the family we are born into.